When you look at the shape of an X, you're actually looking at two V's, one upright, one inverted. So we could take those V's to equal 22 each. So when you're talking about the XX chromosome of a female, you're talking about VV, which would be 222, 2, which equals 8. 8 plus 8 is 16, which equals 7. Okay. And for the XY chromosome for male, you would be looking at VV, which equals 13, which equals 4. So here you have 74, which equals 11, which is polarity. Okay, this is your Gemini twin flame energy where you're talking about XX and XY being mirror numbers. Okay. So this is what is being attempted to be reversed. But you can't do that without the basic iterations of everything in the alphabet until you get to where the lightning actually strikes. Okay, so we get here and you have two upright V's. This is representing two V's, and you can pretty much do the math for that. Then you have the basic V here. You also have the U, which is a representation of the cup or the chalice, or you could say ophicus if you look at the excluded zodiac sign, which is the 13th zodiac. It is the certain serpent bearer, and this is the missing zodiac. Okay, and it's serpent because the serpent bearer is a representation of the kundalini energy. It's the heat, it's sexual intercourse, and these two together represent, if you look at the ophicus symbol, it has like a serpent going through it, and it is a representation of the 13th, or the completion of sexual intercourse between these two to birth new life. Okay, and then we can skip over here, but I also wanted to point out that the T is the balanced masculine in between, and it's also two inverted L's. Okay, and when you talk about the balanced masculine, it's not the T on the bottom, okay, with just the erection of the phallus. It is the T controlling, or the phallus on the bottom that's controlled or has self-control. So between these three is a representation of sexual intercourse. The serpent is a representation of uranium. I don't know if you know anything about uranium, but uranium has what you call alpha particles, and alpha particles are a main component in creating new chemical compounds. They're like a breakdown mechanism within chemical compounds. Uranium is used in a number of formulas in order to break down various chemicals into different parts so you can get something new. That's basically what this is. So, but it's also a cosmic representation of the divine, feminine, and masculine. When you talk about the twin snakes, many people have, across the entire world, there are many cultures that have these serpent or cosmic serpent representations, and you can read the book The Cosmic Serpent on that, where they talk about going into the jungle, experiencing ayahuasca, and seeing these snake deities. It's something that's widely known in indigenous cultures or Native American cultures in America and around the world, that there are snake entities. Okay, and I know people got on me about my drawings or whatever that I channeled about the way that this entity or this feminine goddess looks, because she's half serpent, or the nagas. Okay, you just need to pick up a book. All right, so you're talking about uranium, the uranium that contains the alpha particles, the serpent energy, which is the masculine, and the chalice, which is a representation of the V. It's a softer version of the V, or a cup. And this entire stew right here is where you get to the zygote. Okay, but it takes a combination of all of this in order for you to get here. And the ultimate goal is not to cut off at the Z, or for the Z to block it, or for it to trap it. It's for you to get here, which is the completion, having this C and this balanced T right here, so you can balance everything out. But let's move on. So you get to more iterations of the C, and what's happening now is you have a C going to the right. And anytime you see any curve or arc like a womb going to the left, you're talking about it being in the masculine energy. So up until this point, everything is seemingly normal on a forward-facing level. Even getting down to the egg here, everything seems normal in terms of just how everything works: the procreation, the phallus. Okay, the womb producing, or you have a sperm entering. You have a sperm entering an egg here, and then you have a representation of a V with a womb space here and a phallus. It just goes into these varied iterations of these particular arcs of light, or representation of the duality in varied forms. But when you get to the end of the lightning striking and it going down, now you are inverting all of this. Okay, and we go from a W, which is the upright facing feminine two V's to an inverted version of the two V's. And then you have an L, which is now facing upward or erected. As I told you, T is a version of two L's in the inverted, or having control over the balanced masculine and the phallus, to an upright or an erected one. And then now you have here two V's that are together, and you can just let your imagination run with that. And then we have a T with an arc. Now, you don't necessarily have to have this cap on the top of the J. I'm very aware of it. All depends on how you're making it. But in this sense, I believe that the T, or even you can say the 9, which is supposed to be the balanced masculine, is given an arc. You can say this is a C, okay? You can also say this is a U. But either way, it's a representation of the feminine, okay? And then we get to the I, which is the phallus alone. You have the H, which is an iteration of 3 phalluses, 1, 2, 3, okay? And this is also the 8 for the loop, okay? This is your Father, Son, Holy Spirit, or the Trinity. And then you have the G. And what I want to point out about the G is very specific. You have a C here, and then you have a 7 here. It's not the full circle like I did here. Okay, it is half, and this is the number 7, or it's the L inverted. But the L inverted can also by itself be a number 7. Okay, and when you're talking about the number 7, you're talking about a side energy. It's basically like a reaping energy. It's a full masculine energy, but it's more like a chopping energy, basically. Or you can say it's the reaper. It can be representative of death or reaping a harvest, right? And it is plunging into the sea or the womb. It goes straight into it. It's like it's hacking into it. This, I believe, is very intentional, especially with the fact that the womb is facing right when this is happening, okay? And then you get to, well, let's not skip over the fact that the G is a representation of many organizations that use that particular logo or sigil, and there's a reason behind that. And when you think about it in the sense of the C, this being a C and this being a 7, the letter C is the number 3, and 3 is also the 3 points of the womb of a woman. You have a triangular shaped womb space with 3 points, okay? So the C alone is 180 degrees, but it's also a representation numerically of the uterus, okay? And what you're saying with this is you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. You have the number 3 represented here, which is the uterus, and the birth being sliced in half by the number 7, okay? And it's going in its proper direction, but it's not supported. And the letter G is symbolic of that, okay? So here you go into more iterations of the 3 phallus, and you have even 4 phallus symbols here. And then you have, and this could be a representation, doesn't necessarily have to be anything bad. It could be a gathering, or it could be, because masculine energy can work in many different ways, but I believe the most important is it working together simultaneously in a very harmonic shape. So if you're thinking about this in terms of the masculine helping each other or supporting each other, E would probably be the best iteration of that. Not this F, which is like on one leg, and you know your homeboys are helping you out, but they're nothing but a burden. All right. So when you get here, you have the C, which is now facing the left, and the phallus, which is on the right. This is a complete inversion, and it's the 4th letter of the womb and the phallus, okay? The woman is now in the giving, and the man is in the receiving, okay? And this is all happening after the lightning strikes, okay? Then we have the woman alone, okay? And again, like I said, this is a representation of the womb, which is 180 degrees, and it's also a representation of the uterus. And then you have a combination, which is B, and B is very important because it's also a inverted 5, okay? These two numbers are mirrored for that purpose, all right? And if you take a look at the difference between the B and the E, the only difference is that the B has a closure, okay? And the E does not. So this, like I said, is a little bit more balanced than this is, but this is also the inversion of the 5. So when you say like an inverted pentagram, you're talking about the number 2, and this is what is said to be the Baphomet, or this inverted intersex being that is a deity for many, and this is the B, or the representation of the number 2, which is that polarity or the intersexuality of this being. And it segues directly into the A. And the A is key because we're talking about this antichrist, because this is a crest, or this is a Christ, or it's a representation of the feminine or the trinity of the womb space, okay? Isis throne, which is 3 steps, 1, 2, 3. And then you have an inversion of this V completely upside down, but it's not alone. It has a line in the middle, or an I in the middle. So what is that math? Okay, if you invert the V, it's 22 still, and then you have a 9, which is the I that's in the center, or you can say it's the phallus that's 2 and 1. Okay, it's upside down, so now it's inverted. Okay, and then you have 22 plus 9, which equals 13, which equals 4. Okay, so within this lightning strike, we have pretty much, and when you get to the 7, we have pretty much ritually inverted this intersex being. And the number 4, as I said, is a representation of the crossroads. It's a representation of this entity that is worshipped throughout cultures or throughout the world in this point, and what many people are worshiping so that they do not have to deal with judgment, or they don't have to deal with the duality.